Hello! So earlier today I did a live stream from Providence, Rhode Island over to Martha's Vineyard in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, and the main point of the video was to show you a couple of airports available from Orbx. Unfortunately I didn't spot it, but I've actually got 2 copies of Providence, Rhode Island installed, or I had 2 copies installed, both the Orbx version and the Inibuilds version. So I only thought it was fair if I go back to visit, and we're going to come here twice in a row, back to back. So I'll go and pause the video and reload the simulator in a few minutes. But first of all, we're going to look around the Orbx version of the scenery, see what it looks like, and then we'll come back with the Inibuilds version and see how it compares. So the one we're looking at here is the Orbx version. So let's go and jump in through the walkway. So you can see there's this quite simple glass walkway structure. There's a couple of 3D issues here and there in the bend in the pathway, but we've got nice travelators, I think they call them, and there's some basic simple figurines along the way. So obviously from the outside that all looks fine. If we then go down and look at the main building, you will see there is this rock structure which looks like it's levitating and we got some more figurines, very basic ones, but if we go and look at the main building it's actually quite impressive. So we're going to go and scoot underneath here. So you can see within the main building there's a yacht. And if we go and fly through the glass into the terminal area, this actually looks remarkably realistic with obviously the brick patterns. The carpets maybe aren't anything to shout about, but maybe it really is that ugly carpet in the real world. But yeah, this impressed me, having these information or marketing panels around the place. So as we carry on down through the building, you can see lots of these figures. They're very basic figures, but they're not much else in this part of the building. Okay, so we'll fly on through the wall at the far end and look at it from the air side. So obviously that's just a solid structure that's been developed. So the entranceway was developed, but they have gone and developed the terminals, or the gates I should say. So if we go and zoom along through the gates, we can see it's got quite basic texturing, but it has got the gates in place and the glass and the various buildings, the various aeroplanes obviously parked at the gates. These are just the default Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft that we are showing today. So if we go and jump around the other side, let's see how well it's simulated around this side. So we're going to pop in, and it's more or less the same. So we're going to zoom along. We've got live weather on, so this is just live lighting as it is right now. And we can go out through the other end. It's incredibly kind to frame rates, I will give it that much. Okay, the gates themselves, or the jetways, are, I think they're the default ones. So if we go and have a fly around the perimeter of the airfield, let's go and see what sort of detail has been modelled into it. So we've got some hangars over here, very basic structures with lots of vehicles parked around the place. Lots and lots of cars. The paintwork on the ground looks fine. Something that you do notice when you're flying in the simulator is how the textures look on the runway. So if we get close to them, they're not bad at all. If we go and have a look over at the radio kit over here, so this is a VOR obviously. Okay, and let's go and have a look at the control tower. So you can see the grass textures are nothing to write home about. They're quite low resolution. And the cars here are quite basic as well. So then we come over to the tower, and there's obviously nothing inside it. So this was one of the telltales that we had two airports earlier, because we had one tower inside the other. Okay, so then if we come down to the hangars, so more radio kit here. Again, the poor ground textures really give it away, don't they? And then we'll have a look. We've got an aeroplane with its nose through the wall of the building. The hangars themselves are okay. They've got the structures in the roofs, as you would imagine they should. But it does look like this is a scenery that's been uplifted from a previous version, because it hasn't got the more detailed texturing that 2024 has got. You know, the material modelling is much better in 2024, and they're often just simple shapes like with textures on them. Okay, so that's a quick look around the Fly 2 version that's sold by Orbx. So it's not bad at all, but I thought it would be good to be able to look at this one and then compare and contrast it with the version available from Inibuilds. So we don't give any kind of false impressions of which version looks like what and which is the kindest to frame rate and so on and so forth. So I'm going to pause recording here and I'm going to go and reload the simulator with the Inibuilds version instead. Okay, we're back, and this time we are looking at the Inibuilds rendition of Providence, Rhode Island. So I'm just going to hang on for 2 seconds. Okay, apologies for that. I was just looking up to see who developed the Inibuilds version. So Inibuilds actually sell both versions, but both the Fly 2 or Fly 2 High version that we saw Orbx selling, and their own handcrafted version of their own. So this is the Inibuilds version of the airport specifically for 2024. So we're expecting to see much higher quality textures and material modelling, and we're seeing them. So as you come in through the entranceway, you can see the quality of 3D modelling is obviously improved, which means this probably wasn't uplifted. Well, we know this is a specifically for 2024 version, and we can see the 3D structures in much more detail, and we can see the figures are in a lot more detail. Apologies for that moving so quickly. I need to slow the drone camera down on the way through here. So let's go and get outside to slow the drone camera down. You can see the reflections are nicer, the glass and the structures are much more detailed. But having said that, they have not modelled the interior of the main building, I don't think. So we're just on our way over there now to go and have a look. Oh no, I tell a lie. If we come in, so earlier on when we had both airfields on top of each other, then that changed the story. Oh, we've got the old problem with 3D structures look. So if we try and fly the drone camera under here, it hits an invisible wall. It is quite a complex structure to make, so I'm not going to get too worried about it. But if we come in through here, we have got the yacht though. So let's see how the interiors compare. Yeah, this is much, much nicer, isn't it? We have got the red bricks. We've got shiny surfaces on the floor for tiled areas. We've got better carpet textures. It's altogether a much more modern scenery. So yeah, it's absolutely worth looking at. Okay, so if we come down through, so we've got the security here. So this is much of the airfield or airport that we saw earlier. So we've got the areas with cafes, with people sitting having phone calls and so on and so forth. We've got the sculptures within the terminals. We've got the nice people models all the way down through the gates. And as we fly down through the gates, you can see it's just a lot nicer, but it's more modern. This is evolution development for you, within the simulator. So some of this stuff wasn't possible in earlier versions. So this is a later, or a newer, I should say, version of the scenery. and therefore it takes advantage of new capabilities in the 2024 rendering engine. And you can see it makes an enormous difference. Okay, so we're just coming down through the end of the building. So let's go and have a look as well. This goes as far as the jet bridges as well. You can see they are much higher quality than the ones we saw in the previous version of the scenery. And it probably is going to extend as far as, yeah, a lot of this, the furniture, if you want to call it that, around the airfield is higher quality. There's a lot more of it. Therefore, you are going to need a beefier PC then to run this, to make it smooth, because obviously there's just a lot more of it. So we did go and look at the runway textures previously, didn't we? So, but before we do that, there's obviously, yeah, there's far more around the outside of the airfield. Which means more grunt needed to show it at acceptable frame rates. The grass textures are much better. And we have a fire station with fire engines in it. So where we had the mixture of both sceneries before, this is now completely realised with all 3D structures, which is much better, isn't it? And we've got boulders, and if we come down to the far end, we've got the radio kit and obviously the lights for the approach lighting. Very cool. Windsock. And the tower, the proper tower. So let's go and slow the drone camera down. Now, do we get an internal this side? We do. Look at this. So if we edge the camera into the tower, get a much nicer tower. So it's night and day better, isn't it? And a lot more detail. Look, just in all of the buildings, they're fully realised in 3D. Let's go and have a look and see how different the VOR looks in the middle of the airfield. So yeah, even the VOR is a lot more detailed look. So you've got the proper structure of it and the service building underneath. So there we go. There really is no comparison between them, is there? So I think this may be a series of videos I'm going to make looking at different versions of the same airfield. Obviously, the Orbx version, or the version that Orbx are making available, predates this one. So this is a really good example of evolution within the simulator, because the Inibuilds version is specific to 2024. And it just shows the enormous difference in capabilities between the two simulators. And I know people are still hanging on to 2020, but this really does give a stark realization of the difference in the scenery engines, or the rendering engines, and the capabilities between the two. Because this just looks nice, doesn't it? And it's not just the level of detail, it's the material modelling, the way light shines off things. We can see we've got tinted glass here. The ability of it to render high resolutions at speed as well. So coming back in through that entrance area. So yeah, this is markedly better, isn't it? Anyway, I just thought it was only fair that I showed both, because I made the mistake earlier. So there we go. We have looked at both the version of Providence Rhode Island available from Orbx and the version available, the newer version available from Inibuilds. And I know which one I would pick. Obviously, if you're still using 2020 and frame rate is a concern, Orbx may still be a good consideration. But if you've got the power to run it and you want a really high definition version of Providence Rhode Island, then this would be the version I would choose. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you've enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.